I sought the Lord, and He answered me and delivered me from every fear. Those who look on.
Hi, everybody. This is Gary with Timeless People You Should Know and Their Life-Changing Stories. I'm excited today to have the guest we have because she and her husband just moved away from the Wheaton area into Indiana and kind of lost touch with them a little bit, except her husband, Jim, and I are still in a small group every week, so we get to say hi and look at each other and talk a little bit about our lives and life stories. So, but today, his wife, Merrilee Runyon, is our very special guest. So, Merrilee, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
I'm so glad. Where are you guys living now?
Yeah, we're in Indiana. We're in Noblesville, Indiana. So north of Indianapolis, a little bit on the east side, but kind of straight north.
Okay. So you're not that far from Wheaton yet, are you?
No, it's about 4 hours, 3.5 hours on a good day. It just depends. But right down 65, it's pretty straight shot.
Yeah, well that's great. Well, we're gonna ask you some really special questions, but we really want to get to one of the main ones here in a minute. But Merrilee, what gets you up in the morning, or what's been getting you up in the morning lately?
Well, we're in this new area, so I'm kind of investigating. I like to check out things and learn new places. So I'm kind of learning my way around our church. One thing I really have enjoyed getting involved in is a women's Bible study. I haven't done that for a number of years. We've had our small group Bible study from Willow that we were part of for quite a long time, but to be more of an in-depth where I really had to study. So that's one of the things. And then also our grandkids are close. So that's fun to get to see them multiple times in the week.
Yeah, well, why don't you bring us up to date on your family and what's going on with you guys, your grandkids, your children, all that stuff.
Yeah, we have 4 kids. Our daughter is the only one that's married, and she's down here just south of us a little ways, just a few miles. And she has 4 little ones. So they're 7, 6, 4, and 2.
Wow.
And so they're a busy family and they're homeschooled. So Rebecca's busy a lot with them. And her husband's a pilot. So he's gone sometimes for a few days at a time. And so we get to go down there and spend some time, read books and play games, learn new games, and generally get exhausted when we go there. But it really is fun. So we do enjoy that, getting to know their little personalities too.
Yeah.
And then we have 3 sons. 2 are still in the Chicago area. And then 1 is in Austin, Texas. So they all have their own businesses and keep themselves pretty busy. And even during the pandemic, they were able to keep their businesses going and everything like that. So, and then both Jim and I have family that are in Indiana, Michigan. That's where we originally were from. So I'm a little closer to my mom, who's 93 now, and siblings. I have 6 siblings and Jim has 8 siblings. So we're a little closer to all of them. It's about an hour closer than we were before. So that's kind of nice too.
Wow. Hey, you've got to tell us a little bit about your musical background, though. Okay. And maybe how you and Jim met too. That's a part of this. Okay. Take a little time out and do that here. Come on.
Yeah. My family, there were 7 kids in my family. My mom was a music teacher. She was also my kindergarten teacher, but she was our music teacher. And so I think as part of crowd control, as I became a parent, I realized this is what it was. She had us singing together, especially in the car when we'd all be going someplace. Well, then we started singing for church, or we'd sing for community, events. Sometimes a competition here or there, like for 4-H. And we were called the Church Chimes because my maiden name is Church. So we had a little bell with a C in the middle of it that was for Church Chimes. So we had a lot of fun with that, and some growing pains with that too, I suppose. Trying to corral 7 kids to do that. But mom would play the piano, and we got to do a lot of traveling with that, and that's actually one way that we met Jim's family, because he's from a family of 9 kids, and our parents met or knew each other through church, through some of the where several churches would come together to do events. And so our families knew each other, and we sang at their church. So we got to sing over at just across the line into Michigan and got to sing at their church. And our parents liked each other, and we had a lot of kids between the two families. So that's how Jim and I met. He was actually, I remember one of the first times he was teaching up in West Bend. He'd started teaching, and then I was still in high school, but I remember being at their house, and he had to be home on that vacation. And he'd also been at a camp and was a lifeguard for the camp. And my brothers were there. So anyway, just a lot of crossover between the families. But his parents thought it'd be good if he would write to me, but he didn't want to do something that somebody else told him to do. So he waited for a few years. And then when I was teaching, then he wrote to me at one point, stopped and looked up my address and wrote to me. And then he said, I thought if you would write back, we would probably end up together. So
Oh,
that's what happened.
That's a great story. And how long have you guys been married?
We've been married 40 years this year.
Oh, wow. That's very, very cool. Well, I love Jim, as you know, and you too. And really appreciate all you are and have done with our church and your leadership in our church, as well as in our gathering that we will miss you greatly at. But talk a little bit about, just for a minute, you said you were a teacher. So is that kind of the career path you followed all the way through, or?
Yeah, that's what I studied, and I ended up being a middle school math teacher. I got a job right out of college, right in South Bend, and taught there for 4 years. And that's where I was when Jim wrote to me. And then Jim was teaching in West Bend, Wisconsin. So we had South Bend and West Bend. And then we decided when we got married, then it was into West Chicago. So, so we had a lot of the directions there, but we were, so I taught for 2 years then in West Chicago before our first baby was born. And then I was able to stay home then. I was very thankful for that. So I stayed home for a number of years until she was, well, then we had the other three. And then when Rebecca was about a senior, I think, is when I started working in an orthopedic office, just more as a reception. I'm not a medical trained person, but I worked in the reception and ended up doing some kind of the administrative part of things and ordering supplies and, doing appointments, scheduling and that kind of thing. But anyway, editing notes. That I learned a lot. It was really interesting. So I did that for about 17 years then, as the kids were finishing college and then out on their own, and did that for a number of years, and then ended up kind of narrowing that down at the time that Jim had his stroke. So then I worked some, but they were very generous in letting me have some extra time off. So then eventually it was just too much to go back and forth. So I just stayed home at that point. And I was grateful to be able to do that too.
That's nice. Let's get a plug for that orthopedic place too, because they're really
Genesis Orthopedics, Dr. Shadid.
great people over there, and just a wonderful practice, and not only a 5-star organization, but 5-star people leading it. So that's a pretty cool thing. Well, let's talk a little bit about your faith story. Growing up in a Christian home sometimes makes all the difference, and sometimes it doesn't. But from your vantage point, why don't you talk a little bit about what that meant to you and how you came to be a real follower of Jesus?
Okay. Yeah, we had a lot of influence from our church and being part of it, and also from grandparents who were close by. We ended up with 5-day clubs from Child Evangelism Fellowship. That was really my first. I had an aunt that taught us, and sometimes she would come right to our house during the school year. But my first decision, I suppose you would call it, for Jesus was when I was about 5, and it was in a 5-day club in the summertime at my grandma's place. And after that, you're young, so you don't really know what life's going to be about. But a lot of camps, a lot of Bible memory. My grandma would have us come down there once a week. We would Bible Memory Association or something like that we would come down and have to do our memory from that week, memorize it and say it to her during that week. So she was kind of checking in on us. So we had that, and then the camps and Christian college. I did quizzing too a little bit in high school. So that was kind of connected with Jim's family too. Jim's mom was our quiz coach. So we did some quizzing, so you did some memorizing of scripture there too. And then college, I think I just learned a lot more, realized that the world's a lot bigger place than my little family and my little town in Indiana. And realized that God is, at work in a lot of other people's lives too, not just mine. Then we got married and moved to Chicago. And that time we were in a small church, and it was kind of like a lot of transplants, people from a lot of people from Indiana, because it was a denomination not known well around here. So that church closed, and a friend of ours had invited us to Willow. So then we started coming to Willow. And at first we thought, oh, modern music and skits of some kind. But that's turned out to be one of my favorite things, were the drama things that they had. And then when we got involved in small groups, that was really one of the turning points. And I realized this always gets me choked up, but I realized then that it was an invitation to come to Jesus, and not just something he had to do, not just a to-do list kind of thing, or not that you had to do anything, but it was an invitation. That verse in Matthew 11:28-29, that yeah, I think that's the verse, that 11:28-29. Come unto me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So take your yoke upon me and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly. I believe that's how it was.
Lowly of heart, and you shall find rest unto your soul.
Yeah.
My yoke is easy and my burden is light. That's such a beautiful verse.
Yeah.
Thank you for quoting that today. That yeah, that's one of my favorite verses too, and that's really beautiful. Well, you guys, both of you and Jim, but you have been a shining light, a light to us, to all of us, and that light has shone very brightly. And I know over the last few years there have been some challenges, but I can still see that light shine. We would talk after church sometimes, and there would be some tears, even some moments, and but it was always an encouragement to me to see how you stood tall and courageous and brave. And that's a pretty, very, very, very cool thing. What a great story. What would you tell someone? I'm just going to kind of end with this thought today, but what would you tell someone who's considering Christ in their lives? Maybe there's someone who grew up in the church and they've been disillusioned with the church. It wasn't or didn't meet all their expectations. They have words for that, thoughts about that, and they just haven't turned the corner yet. What would you suggest to them? What would you say to them?
I would say that it's important to remember not to look at people to see, because people are going to disappoint us, to see what we're looking for. But we have to look at Jesus, look at his example, look at his direction for us, his encouragement for us, to see what he wants for us and what he's given to us. And I think to have that gratefulness, that whole idea of what do we have to be grateful for, and to realize there are many things, it's not, I think we lose sight of that sometimes, and it's so easy to focus on the negative and the things that kind of wear you down. Yeah. And then it's a downward spiral.
Yeah, it sure
so
can.
I think that whole idea, and the Bible study that I'm doing now is about Exodus. And so they were talking about how the children of Israel, when they were in Egypt, they were so used to the slavery and just looking down at the ground. And God wanted them to look up to Mount Sinai. But we're kind of at that point where he's giving the commands now. And but just, raise our eyes to look beyond what we can see right here in our, day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
But look to him for direction and for encouragement.
Yeah. Where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord.
Yeah.
Amen.
I lift
Amen.
my eyes to the hills. Yep.
Merrilee, Runyon, thank you so much for taking time today for us. I know you probably have a busy schedule with all those grandkids and
That's right.
a lot of babysitting, a lot of places to go to and
Mhm.
see, but thank you so much for spending some time with us on People You Should Know. And friends, I just want to say too, if you'll tune in on February 14th to peopleyoushouldknow.com, you'll see all of these testimonies of people sharing life-changing stories. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, thank you, Merrilee.
Thank you. Good to see
I
you.
sought the Lord, and He answered me and delivered me from every fear. Those who look on Him are radiant, they'll never be ashamed, they'll never be ashamed.